Good afternoon and welcome to the House Health and Government Operations Committee bill hearings. Periodically, we still run into some technical difficulties. Someone has trouble connecting. Please be patient with us as we try to accommodate folks as much as we can. Remember that while we're meeting on Zoom, it is still true that our members should adhere to our usual rules of one question and one answer from the panel, not multiple answers to the same question. And please remember to keep your questions shorter than the expected answer. As far as timing goes for the hearing, the bill sponsor or designee will have 5 minutes to present the bill. Up to 5 witnesses will be allowed to speak for 2 minutes each in support. And then up to 5 witnesses will be allowed to speak favorable with amendments for 2 minutes each. And then lastly, up to 5 witnesses will be allowed to speak for 2 minutes each in opposition. With that, we will begin with the first bill of the day, which is House Bill 1107. That's Delegate Bagnall, Maryland Sign Language Interpreters Act. Delegate Bagnall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Heather Bagnall, District 33, Anne Arundel County, here on behalf of House Bill 1107, the Maryland Sign Language Interpreters Act. According to a Johns Hopkins study, Maryland has over 1.2 million residents who are deaf or hard of hearing, yet Maryland law does not sufficiently regulate or standardize licensing requirements for American Sign Language interpreters. This committee may recall the testimony of last session on HB 535 on interpretive issues in legal and medical settings when members of the deaf and hard of hearing community were ill-served and jeopardized by unqualified, inadequate, and sometimes fraudulent interpreters. And my panel will share additional stories concerning the range of services where we are falling behind in protecting our deaf and hard of hearing Marylanders. It is essential that we maintain high standards for ASL interpreters in the state so that the millions of Marylanders who are deaf or hard of hearing have accessible pathways to be heard and understood. House Bill 1107, the cross-file of SB 748, is a response to the 2020 Joint Chairman's Report requested by the Governor's Office of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing to provide a response on ways to protect and serve users of sign language interpreting services. And you can find the report in my written testimony. This bill, which is the result of countless hours working with multiple stakeholders to address the concerns raised in last year's hearing, is an essential consumer protection bill. 22 states already have licensing requirements for American Sign Language interpreters. Maryland has fallen behind protecting our deaf and hard of hearing citizens. HB 1107 is a comprehensive piece of legislation to establish a long overdue licensing and regulatory system for ASL interpreters and policy framework. I've submitted an amendment to remove any criminal penalties and jail time for violators, and this conforms the bill to the Senate crossfile. For these reasons, I ask for a favorable report and cede my remaining time to my panel.
Delegate, this is one of those technical difficulties where I do not have your full panel. Can you identify the next speaker, please? Delegate Bagnall.
Sorry, I realized I needed to unmute. The next speaker, I believe, is Tara Congdon.
Okay, thank you. Tara Congdon. Well, I see Tabitha Conway is, or Crony. Tabitha, will you be speaking today? Oh, there's Tara. Okay. Let's go with Tara first.
Okay, I do want to let everybody know that we're having some technical difficulties with access on the YouTube feed. Apparently, the deaf participants are only able to see the timer countdown. They're not able to see either the interpreters or, for example, myself now signing.
I just removed the timer, so it'll just be the sound of the timer, I believe.
We will also let you guys know when the timer is up.
Perfect, thank you. yeah, please, we don't need to have the timer on the screen while I'm making my comments. Also, for our deaf folks providing testimony, if we could have an additional minute. So typically they get 3 minutes instead of 2 minutes because of the lag time. That's a necessary part of an interpretation.
We can make that accommodation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So that being said, I'll go ahead and begin. To the Honorable Chair and members of the committee, I'm very thrilled to be here with you today to lend my support to HB 1107. I testified for you last year and it didn't seem to have the desired effect, so I'm not going to waste either of our time by repeating myself. All that information is in my written testimony. Today, what I'd like to do is put you in my shoes. So if you could envision yourselves in a room, your legal or your medical team is in a separate soundproof room. They cannot hear you. You cannot hear them. You have one individual serving as a go-between what's being said by both parties. This go-between is between the ages of 20 and 25 years old. They've had 2 years of community college, which includes new courses in advanced legal or medical terminology. They have no license. They have never taken a test to measure their skill set. You have never met them before, and it was somebody else who chose this person for you. You're on trial for a crime you didn't commit. You're facing 5 to 10 years of imprisonment. Do you feel that that information from that go-between is going to be dependable, going between yourself and the lawyer and the judge? Do you feel safe and feel that you will receive an adequate defense? You're relying on this go-between to convey medical history to the surgical team and to get details about yourself or your child's medical history to have a safe surgery. Do you feel safe? And do you feel that all that information will be conveyed? How do you feel knowing that a small agency who is responsible for choosing these interpreters has been whispering in legislative ears, including the ears of Senator Pinsky, saying that 2 years of community college is adequate to be able to facilitate communication when your life or your freedom is on the line? When you've borrowed from your retirement or you've used your house as collateral to pay for your legal or your medical fees. When they're also whispering that there's going to be an interpreter shortage, when you know there are over 700 certified interpreters and you never have a problem finding an interpreter when you look for one yourself, and that you use them on a daily basis with your job. Now, I can't name names of that particular agency owner because she contracts with my OBGYN's office, and she is trying to contract with my current pediatrician's office, putting my kids' lives at risk. I make 6 figures. I'm a taxpayer. I support my family, I vote, and I serve my country by working through a congressional agency. Why am I relegated to second-tier status so that business owners can maintain the status quo and earn a larger profit margin? This takes advantage of me and my family. It's a deeply flawed business model, exploiting me and putting us at risk. So ignore the whispering and do what we voted you to do. Protect your constituents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to call on Stephanie Summers. Msda. There she is.
All right. Hello, everyone. Chair Pendergrass, Vice Chair Pinne-Milnick, and members of the Committee for Health and Government Operations. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Summers, and I'm representing the Maryland Interpreter Licensure Team on behalf of the Maryland Association of the Deaf. And I'm here to testify in favor of HB 1107. We have been collaborating with a variety of stakeholders to draft this bill. And the reason being is we want to protect our deaf consumers, our deaf citizens, as well as our interpreters, and maintain the high caliber of their profession. Now, as you might know, in 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act was codified into law, requiring that any business that serves the public provide qualified interpreters. Now, unfortunately, the federal and state have never defined what qualified means. And that means a person who is not a fluent signer could cause undue harm to the deaf community by interpreting things incorrectly. You might have seen a situation that took place in 2017 during Hurricane Irma, where a gentleman was asked to interpret, not a fluent signer, and basically what the community saw was that there was a monster pizza bear bearing down on the coast. And because deaf people didn't have adequate access to the correct information, they stayed in harm's way. This is one of many occurrences that happens on a day-to-day basis in our courtrooms, in our hospitals, in our college classrooms, and during job interviews in the state of Maryland. This bill at its heart is a consumer protection bill. Now, you recently heard from Tara Congdon and the egregious situation she's suffered and the cost she has incurred dealing with unqualified interpreters. And we want to reduce the chances of those types of situations happening again to the deaf community in the future. HB 1107 doesn't just serve to regulate interpreters. There are provisions in it which will develop regulations for interpreting agencies, because some agencies do engage in deceptive practices. For example, they might not give an interpreter all the information they need to know to judge whether or not they are qualified, and who ultimately bears the brunt of the penalty for that is the interpreter if the agencies don't face any type of regulations. Now, that being said, the agencies will definitely have a seat at the table in developing said regulations so their voices are heard. The thought that this bill would cause a shortage of interpreters is also a myth. There is no data to support that claim. There is language within the bill which will provide a variety of mechanisms and programs, trainings, and workshops to help those, particularly from marginalized communities, reduce the barriers and frustrations to ultimately becoming a licensed interpreter. Those who are already certified by virtue of their certification would be able to be licensed. And for those who have not yet sat for the test, again, we would provide supports for them in developing the skills they would need in order to obtain licensure ultimately. Here in the state of Maryland, many businesses already follow best practices that are outlined in the bill in terms of providing qualified interpreters or having interpreters that meet a minimum criteria need. And a lot of agencies support those interpreters by making sure they have a minimum set of qualifications. Also, the ability to evaluate and hire qualified interpreters will be taken out of the people hiring interpreters won't have the onus to do that anymore because the bill will take care of that for them. You received the written testimony of a Mr. Mark Burke, who owns Streetcar 82 Brewing Company, and his testimony outlines and illustrates the need for qualified interpreters from a business perspective. Now, those businesses that are not in favor of this bill or are opposed to it, typically ones who tend to hire unqualified, uncertified interpreters purely for financial reasons, keeping us from getting the appropriate services.
Ms. Summers, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Summers. Thank you, Ms. Congdon. I just want to make sure that Tiff Matthews is not here.
Madam Chair, if I might, we got a message that Tiff Matthews had a family emergency
Oh, sorry.
Leslie Puzio is, I believe, available on standby, but we left that at the discretion of the committee.
We can take Leslie since she's replacing Tiff. So Leslie Puzio. Is she here?
Leslie is not here.
Okay. Then we'll go with the two speakers, if that's all right, Delegate. So I'd like to open it now to questions from the committee. Any questions?
Leslie doesn't have the Zoom link. My interruptions, Madam Chair. She would need the Zoom link to be able to enter.
Right, and I think we're gonna, if you don't mind, but I think we're gonna go ahead and proceed. We've got some good information from the two speakers. Okay, I see no questions from the committee. So that concludes the hearing on HB 1107. Thank you very much, Delegate. Thank you very much to Ms. Summers and Ms. Conglin for providing us with your testimony today. And we will move to the next bill, which is House Bill 9.
You're welcome.
Thank you. House Bill 969, Delegate Kelly, State Board of Dental Examiners, Membership, Training, and Disciplinary Processes, Revisions. And this is Delegate Kelly.
Thank you, Delegate Cullison, and thank you to the members of the committee for hearing me on this bill. I'm going to speak quickly and then turn it over to my panel, but I want to just remind the committee that this bill relates to the dental board. Last year, particularly the Health Occupation Subcommittee spent a tremendous amount of time on these issues. We had multiple weeks in work sessions on a bill both by Delegate Saab and a bill by Delegate Krebs. We eventually ended up passing a bill by Senator Beidel that resulted in a report that we all heard in a meeting presented to us, I think in November or December of this year. So this legislation is a follow-up to that work that we began last session. It does contain components from what was the Saab bill that we passed out of the House but did not pass out of the Senate. Parts of it's certainly very similar to what was in the Krebs bill. It relates to the dental board. I do want to note, because I did hear from members of the dental board that they did not, at least some of them did not make the sign up time and sign up in time to have oral testimony. So they will be present in the subcommittee and expressing their concerns related to this bill, even if we're not hearing from them in opposition now, but they do have some concerns with the bill. What the bill does is it is intended to streamline the membership of the board, refine due process. It also provides for education for board members. I think it's really important, and I know it is moving in the Senate already. So with that, I would just say, I think our goal is to provide the professional boards with the support that they need. We understand, and there are other pieces of legislation we're going to be discussing that will help us figure out how we can better provide administrative supports to the board and make it easier for them to do their job well. But with that said, I think we do need to see some improvements here, and I look forward to a robust discussion and urge favorable passage of this bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate. I'd like to call Danielle Varanian, please.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Danielle Varanian. I'm an attorney who represents dentists before the Maryland State Board of Dental Examiners, and I'm here today to urge a favorable report on House Bill 969. This is an important bill that addresses several issues I've seen through the years of representing dentists before this board, and the purpose is to ensure a better dental board. Due process is a cornerstone of our democracy and the bedrock of our Constitution. It means a police officer can't pull you over for running a red light and take your driver's license on the spot. And ensuring due process is beneficial for all dentists, all licensees, all citizens, and all Marylanders. This bill addresses some of those serious issues that we've seen by the board. There are issues with limiting the timing of decisions, leaving dentists without a way to make a living, and their patients without crucial access to care. There are issues with not understanding the process or what's required in a disciplinary case. And we don't blame the dental board for this. They aren't lawyers, and this is a very complicated technical legal process. This bill addresses those specific issues. I know that you'll hear from the dental board at some point that there's not enough staff or investigators to meet the timeframes in this bill. But a staffing problem is not an excuse to deprive a licensee of his or her right to due process. I also know that you will hear some proposed amendments from the MSDA. If the goal of those amendments is to ensure that bad dentists don't get away with doing bad things, that's a goal that we share. And we are happy to work with MSDA to ensure that this bill captures that. There are technical issues with the currently proposed amendments by the MSDA that I don't have time in my testimony to address, but they underscore the lack of understanding that we have with what the process is. I urge that this committee issue a favorable report on House Bill 969 because it's the right thing for patients, dentists, and Marylanders. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand that Kim Mayhew is not present. Is that correct? Is Ms. Mayhew here? Okay, not seeing her, then I would.
Delegate Cullison, I believe that I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe that Ms. Mayhew signed up Dr. Michael Badger, but he is, okay.
I have Dr. Badger here. So Dr. Badger, we'd like to hear from you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Dr. Michael Badger. I'm a licensed practicing dentist in the state of Maryland, and I own multiple practices throughout the state. I'm here to speak on behalf of House Bill 969, as it is important for all dentists. The changes that this bill proposes are good for all dentists, as well as the patients that they serve. The purpose of the bill is, as Daniel has said, is to have a board that functions better. A board that functions better is a board that is better for the patients, all patients, and everyone throughout the citizens of the state of Maryland. A board that functions better is a board that also is better for the Maryland dentists. It gives a dentist the peace of mind knowing that the license that they work so hard for to obtain and maintain will be protected under the law, affording them a proper due process. This bill helps Maryland with access to care by ensuring that there's a process in place for dentists who are indeed disciplined, so they can get back to doing the things that they do on a day-to-day basis for the patients when necessary. I've seen firsthand, and I can attest to multiple instances where these cases have dragged on for not months, but indeed years. And you can imagine the impact that has on a practice from maintaining your credentialing, from what do you do as far as your patient care, as well as the families that they are adversely affected and the patients. I urge a favorable support report on House Bill 969 because it's important. Ultimately, because it's important for access to care throughout the state and for our patients, and to help ensure that the dental board does function much more effectively. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. That completes the sponsors panel. I'll open it up to questions from the committee. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you all for your testimony. We'll move to favorable with amendment, and we'll begin with Dan Doherty. Welcome back, Dan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Dan Doherty. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland State Dental Association, testifying in favor of House Bill 969, but with amendments. The first amendments we have addresses the nomination process. We feel the current system is fair. We feel that that was borne out by the latest appointments made by the governor that came down in the green bag. And we would urge that you do what the Senate did and delete those changes to the nomination process. We also support training for the board. We do object to bringing in a consultation with a state agency, with the Maryland State Bar Association, a private association of lawyers. We feel that it's more appropriate that this be done by the Office of the Maryland Attorney General, and we would avoid the cost of a private attorney being involved. The disciplinary proceedings, we do not have a problem generally with the time frame of rendering a final decision in 120 days. If, and this is not in their bill, good cause is not shown for the delay. There are often good cause reasons why things get delayed. It is normal to have that in the provisions governing judicial proceedings. It should be here as well. Finally, the summary suspension provisions is two-pronged. We disagree with that approach. We feel that if a dentist is in fact a danger to dental patients and it's serious and imminent, the board should summarily suspend them, give notice of their right to a hearing by written request. Within 30 days of that request, hold the hearing, and within 60 days of the hearing, render your decision. The other type or level should just be done in normal disciplinary proceedings. So for these reasons, we would ask you to amend House Bill 969, and we support it with those amendments.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. We'll go to Dr. Charles Doring.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Charles Doring, General Dentist in Rockville, Maryland, and Legislative Affairs Committee Chair for the Maryland State Dental Association. I echo what Dan says. I actually have here with me the green bag nominations. There were 7 very qualified individuals, very diverse individuals who's went through the nomination vetting process, if you will, voted by their peers, but that vote has no binding on the selection. But I will tell you, as a practicing dentist and respecting our profession, dentists vote for people that we think are going to be fair and just for the public. And so we do think it's a valuable component. I will tell you there were 3 vacancies for this year's board and 7 nominees, as I stated. The top 2, the top one was a reappointment, and the second vote getter was appointed to the board. And then the last vote getter was appointed to the board. And I just think that speaks to the diversity and the candidates here. I do want to address, I did supply written testimony that goes into greater detail about the nomination process, but I do want to talk about what Dan stated as far as the training. We do believe very, very valuable. As dentists, we get trained, why not board members? And that training should be provided through the Maryland Attorney General's office. I have concerns that someone nominated for the bar that training may not be adequate for what we're trying to accomplish here. And as Dan stated, sometimes adjudication of cases is delayed because of getting patients' records, COVID-19, whatever the case. And I do think as a profession, to take those into account would be certainly appropriate as an amendment. So support with amendments for House Bill 969. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. And Dr. Thomas Beckett.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Here, we can see and hear you.
All right, excellent.
How are you, Doctor?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Delegate Cullison. Nice to see you on these Zoom links. I'm Dr. Thomas Beckett. I'm past president of the Maryland State Dental Association and the current president of its Charitable and Educational Foundation. And I'm seeking a favorable report on House Bill 969 with some amendments. First off, I'll go back to the easy ones, the last 3 parts. The training, I echo what Dan and Charlie said. I think continuing education for board members is just as important as continuing education for practicing dentists. When it gets to the judiciary process, that's not my wheelhouse, so I won't go into that much other than saying that there are times when things get in the way, and it can be for both sides, and that has to be taken into case. So something with good cause is a good reason. I'm really going to focus on the nomination process for the State Board of Dental Exam. I think the current system is very fair and equitable. It's very simple. You put your name up from either a nationally recognized dental organization, they can put up one name each, or as a practicing licensed dentist who's a resident of the state of Maryland and have 5 years experience, you can, by petition with 10 signatures of your peers, be placed on that ballot. And this is not an election. It's a ballot to rank individuals. This is a peer review of individuals by their peers to go to the governor for a selection process. It was mentioned earlier, the selection process worked very well this year, and it wasn't tilted toward the highest vote getter. This goes, and then it gets confirmed by the Senate for actual appointments. So I would propose that you just delete the entire nomination process change, keep the other 3 in there with some minor amendments, and go for it. And with that points in mind, I ask for a favorable report reflecting this. Thank you very much, and hope everybody has a good weekend.
Thank you, Doctor. You too. I'll open it up for questions for this panel. Any questions for this panel? Delegate Krebs.
Hi, guys, on this Friday afternoon. And thank you guys for being here. You're so committed to your practice. I appreciate that. We've been having discussions about the dental board for a number of years, longer than I'd like to remember. But I know I've had some discussions with some members of the board and executive director in the last few months. And I want to talk specifically about the disciplinary process part of this bill. Part of the issue was just having things done in a timely manner and being fair and so on. And I think someone earlier testified that they've had staffing issues, and no one from the board is on the call on here to testify today, so I'm disappointed. I don't think so, at least according to my signups, no one's here. But the question I have for you, over these years with all of there's staffing issues and turnover issues and inspector problems and contract issues and PINs and all these things, has anyone that you know on the board put forth a plan to say this is what we need to fix the operations of this board? I mean, because we're trying to solve it from a legislative point of view, but I've never seen in all these years a plan to move us forward so that especially the disciplinary problems that we have can be done in a timely manner. Is anyone aware of that?
Delegate, do you want to address your question to someone?
I don't know if
specific?
anybody's there from the board that knows. No one's from the board here, but I don't know if Tom Beckett or someone that served on the board could answer those questions. If they can't, we'll just wait and hold it for the board. But I'm trying to figure out why, every year we're back here on some of these same issues. And I don't know operationally that any of them have changed.
I'm just going to speak up because I was the liaison to the board for a number of years from the Maryland State Dental Association. And this goes back 20, 25 years ago. And nothing in that period of time I've ever seen outside comments on changes that they would like to propose. Now, whether they've done it in-house, I have no idea, but they've never shared that with me or anyone else that I'm aware of.
No, thank you. I appreciate it because it's problematic when we want to help, but we're not sure how to help. And we would think that would come from the board members and these are our needs, but we have another bill we're working on for that. But thank you guys for that. And thank you for being here and being in favor of most parts of this bill. We appreciate this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Any further questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, I thank you all for your time and your testimony today. That concludes the hearing on House Bill 696, and we will go to House Bill 969. This is 968. Delegate Kipke, Health Occupations, Dental Assistance, Certification and Regulations. Delegate Kipke.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of our committee. It's great to be with you to present this bill. I have a little deja vu. Over the years, I've passed legislation with the support of the committee to expand the scope of practice for dental hygienists. This bill does the same thing, but for dental assistants. I think it's critically important that when we have professionals with the appropriate training in our in healthcare, they be empowered to do as much as they can, because We need an all hands on deck approach to delivering healthcare in just about every corner of healthcare these days. We all are very familiar with the shortage of professionals to care for the citizens of Maryland. It's not just a Maryland problem, but a nationwide problem as well. The functions that a dentist may have a dental assistant provide are currently set out in regulations, not in the code. These regulations are adopted by the State Board of Dental Examiners. In each instance, the dental assistant is under the direct supervision of a dentist. The pandemic has also played a serious impact on oral health. It caused many patients to delay necessary treatment, both preventative and restorative. And as a result, the dental care that's needed is much more extensive and time-consuming. This has been coupled with a shortage of dental auxiliaries, both dental hygienists and dental assistants. Efforts are being made by dentistry to increase the number of available dental assistants and dental hygiene programs in Maryland. However, another way to address this problem for increased demand for dental care is to increase the productivity of the dental team. And that's what this bill seeks to do. I also think the bill does something else that's very important by expanding and further professionalizing the role of dental assistants. We are creating a more powerful, a more exciting, perhaps more professional field for someone to go in. Most of the dental assistants are trained in our community colleges in Maryland. And by further professionalizing this role, I believe that it will come with greater pay and their work will continue to be, but have an increased level of respect in the field. What does HB 968 do specifically? First, it codifies what they do. Dental assistants, their roles will be codified, and there will be additional expanded functions that they will be able to provide if they get certified. Those are assisting in orthodontic procedures, which currently is authorized in regs, placing dental sealants, which are a protective coating that is placed in the grooves of the teeth to prevent food and plaque from accumulating, coronal polishing, which is the removal of superficial stain and biofilm, either as a first step in a teeth cleaning or after calculus and tartar have been removed by a dentist or dental hygienist, or prior to placing a dental filling so that it can be bond to a clean surface. It is not a complete dental prophylaxis. Applying silver diamine fluoride, which is a medication placed on a large cavity to slow or stop its progress. It does not fix the cavity, but it can buy time until further treatment can be provided. And lastly, monitor nitrous oxide. Under the bill, a dental assistant may not turn on or change the flow of nitrous oxide, but merely monitor the patient if the dentist has to step out of the room for a minute. There are amendments. A lot of work has gone into this bill. I'm very appreciative of everybody who's helped out. Anesthesiologists have played a role. My friends, the dental hygienists, have played a role, and I want to commend all the lobbyists involved to come up with a good consensus bill. You will see an amendment to the bill which defines what monitor nitrous oxide means. This amendment is offered with the agreement of the anesthesiologist. There is also an amendment which deletes references to a certified dental assistant and replacing it with certification as an expanded function dental assistant. This addresses and satisfies objections expressed by the Dental Assisting National Board because it's trademarked, and they have trademarked the term certified dental assistant. Discussions have been held by Msda and the Maryland Dental Hygiene Association, and we believe that the parties are very close to coming to very clear agreements and some amendments, which are basically technical changes to the bill. So with that, I'll conclude right on time and ask you for a favorable vote as we continue to iron out the small areas of disagreement on the bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Delegate. I'll call back Mr. Dan Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Dan Doherty here on behalf of the Maryland State Dental Association, obviously in strong support of House Bill 968. And I thank Delegate Kipke not only for sponsoring it, but for streamlining what I have to say to you because his presentation was almost perfect. This bill came about because of the shortages we talked about, or the delegate talked about. A lot of it because of COVID, a lot of it because there aren't enough programs. And the MSDA set up an ad hoc committee that spent almost a year looking at this, looking at other state laws, bringing in experts, talking to practitioners. And they came up with a recommendation of some expanded functions to give to dental assistants with proper certification. That was taken to our House of Delegates and was approved in September, and the bill before you is the result of that. Delegate Kipke has outline what the bill does. It's a typical regulatory scheme in terms of requirements of education, examination, etc. The amendments that he has presented have been described well. Hygiene and MSDA are very close to agreement. I would say the only things that are still hanging out there is trying to wordsmith what kind of accredited education programs we want to put into the bill so we don't make it too broad or too narrow. And we're pretty close on resolving the Coronal Polishing. I know there's one other amendment that's been submitted, which would allow for indirect supervision for the intraoral photography. That current law is it must be direct supervision. Indirect supervision in Maryland is general supervision. The dentist wouldn't be on the premises. Nothing a dental assistant does under Maryland law within a practice context is under anything but direct supervision. So we would ask you to reject that amendment, accept the sponsor amendments, and we look forward working in the subcommittee with the other interested parties to get a quickly resolved agreement on amendments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Dr. Charles Doran.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Charles Doring here again, general dentist in Rockville, Maryland. Thank you for the opportunity. I want to take you back for a minute as you walk into a dental office and you're greeted by the dental team. You have the receptionist, you have the scheduling coordinator, you have the person that helps you maximize your insurance benefits. You have the dental hygienist that's responsible for your periodontal health. And you have the dental assistant, and then lastly, the dentist. I put myself low on the totem pole. The dental assistant is such an important job, really key on infection control. As you see, I have Band-Aids on because of the N95 masks I have to wear. Who stocks those? The dental assistant. Such a key position, and you know, we can't say enough praise about them. And it is National Dental Assistant Week coming up next week. I want to talk specifically about the 4 duties very quickly. As was mentioned, coronal polishing, that would be to remove extrinsic stain on the teeth, whether it's before bonding, placing a crown, or before or after the dental hygienist performs their work. We're getting close to March Madness, a lot of college students coming home from school, and there is the thing called Power Hygiene Day, where the dentist, hygienist, and the dental assistant work together in unison to get the process going. The dental assistant would seat the patient, take the radiographs, help the assistant in the charting, and go forward. The placing of dental sealants, Delegate Kipke mentioned, the monitoring nitrous oxide is also in there as well. And then silverdimine fluoride is used to arrest dental decay in small children, and I use it quite a bit in seeing patients in long-term care facilities, the older individuals. So I asked for a favorable report on House Bill 968. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. And Dr. Stephen Dargan.
Thank you, committee members and Madam Chair. I am Steve Dargan. I am a general dentist in Prince Frederick and currently the president of the Maryland State Dental Association. I ask for your support of House Bill 968 for all the reasons that Dan Doherty and my colleagues have mentioned. I will just want to emphasize the fact that during the ad hoc committee's research for these expanded functions, the paramount importance was on the safety of the patient. And I can assure you that at no time will any of these procedures interfere with the safety of these patients. And for that reason, again, I ask that you give 968 a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. And Dr. Diane Romaine.
Hello, to Madam Chair and to the members of the committee. My name is Dr. Diane Romaine. I'm a past president of the Maryland State Dental Association, serve on the Maryland Oral Health Task Force and Maryland Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. But really for 27 years, every day I practice dentistry in Frostburg, Maryland, which is one of Maryland's rural community where we really need access to care. And I see House Bill 968 as such an amazing opportunity to embellish a workforce that we really need here, especially out in a place like Western Maryland. Being in dental leadership for 10 years now, I see, we try to expand the workforce. Sometimes people get a little nervous, but as long as we're doing it, as Dr. Dargan said, safely and with a proper training and with everybody kind of staying in the lanes of the scope of practice that they're trained in, patients win and we all win. I also hold a license to practice dentistry in Pennsylvania. I have a practice there as well, where we work with FDAs. They make really great money and it is a profession. A lot of people in Western Maryland who are dental assistants will actually go across to Pennsylvania to work as an expanded function dental assistant because they can make $25 an hour plus. Whereas here sometimes a lot of dental assistants are moving to other professions that now post-pandemic and in the pandemic, they can make as much money. So I do think elevating the profession is really, really, really important. The other thing is under the direct supervision of a dentist and with the current system of certification by the Maryland State Board of Dental Examiners, we have so many dental assistants already with higher training whose hands are tied behind their back. I think we could do this relatively quickly because we need the help now. So I ask for your favorable report to House Bill 968 to embellish our dental team and to embellish what dental assistants as expanded function dental assistants can do to help our patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. That concludes our favorable panel. So I'll open it up to the committee for questions. And I know Delegate Kelly has been waiting. Delegate?
Thank you so much. I really commend the sponsor. I think this is a fun bill and I like it, but I had a question for Dan. I was listening to your testimony intently and I heard you say, we can work on these amendments, but you should reject this amendment. And I didn't hear which one that was. So can you clarify for me?
It's an amendment that's been offered by Mr. Bariano.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure what his client's name is, but currently under the regulations and under the bill, a dental assistant may take intraoral photography, but it has to be under the direct supervision of a dentist. And they want to make it indirect supervision, which in Maryland is general supervision, which means the dentist would not have to be on the premises. There is no function that can be performed except a certain waiver in, long-term care facilities where a dental assistant doesn't work under the direct supervision of a dentist. And even in that situation, they're under the direct supervision of a dental hygienist. So this would be a departure for what our law has been and should continue to be.
That's really helpful. So we're not looking to expand it beyond the bill that you have introduced, but the amendments from the hygienists we can work on a little bit.
We've resolved two and we're real close to the other two. So I think we'll be able to do it. In fact, I spoke to Caitlin a half hour before the hearing started.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your great testimony. I think this is a really nice bill. Thanks.
Thank you, Delegate Kelly.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing no hands, we'll move to a favorable with amendment panel and begin with Mark Ackerman.
Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I am the Executive Director and founder of the American Teledentistry Association. I'm also a third-generation practicing dentist, as well as a bioethicist. And I really want to set the record straight that Oral photography is not the practice of dentistry and should never have been designated as requiring direct supervision. I work all over the country with underserved patients in need, and in telehealth, teledentistry, we have many other people, many lay people taking photographs. In my own experience in 25 years, having published 50 peer-reviewed articles and written 2 books, the best photos I've ever had of patients were not taken by dental assistants or dentists. So I think that although this bill has many good attributes, the requirement of having dental assistants under direct supervision is a thinly veiled effort to restrict the development of technology and trade in the arena of teledentistry. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Dr. Thomas Beckett.
Good afternoon. Again, Dr. Tom Beckett, past president of Msda and its current president of the Charitable Educational Foundation. Basically, the technical amendments that we talked about earlier are what are in play. And I wasn't really going to have to talk about this oral photography thing, but now I will. Oral photography, in some people's mind, is just photographs or a still picture. In some people's mind, it's called imaging or scanning. And those are the areas that can lead us down a very slippery slope. So under direct supervision of a dentist, I think is where oral photography should stay, unless you want to redefine the terminology. A lot of Me Too from what Dan Doherty and Dr. Doring said. We'll have to say that professionalizing our dental assistants is going to be a plus. There are existing training programs here in Maryland, such as the Center of Applied Technology South in Anne Arundel County, Chesapeake College in Queen Anne's, the Maryland State Dental Association, and others, can incorporate these learning modules very quickly so that these individuals can become certified. And with that, I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 968 with the amendments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce Bariano. Bruce, are you here? Maybe on mute. Richard, do we see Richard or Susanna? Do we see him?
They are here. They're just
Hear me?
Now we can hear you. Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. For the record, Bruce Bariano. I'm here on behalf of Smile Direct Club of Maryland. Favorable with amendments. There has been discussion already of the amendment that we're proposing, but it's been a biased discussion of that amendment. Smile Direct Club is promoting health equity and consumer choice. We're talking about taking photographs. We're not talking about x-rays, and the necessity of the presence of a dentist increases the costs to the consumer and to the patient. This is done in so many other states and other jurisdictions. It's done here in Maryland as well. And the notion of the dental board requiring the presence of the dentist is very inappropriate for something which is not a dental trained or educated necessity. It is a taking of pictures to later assist dentists in the performance of their profession. So if you look on page 3 of the bill, in lines 11 and 12, where it references performing intraoral photography, the amendment that I'll be proposing on behalf of my client to the committee just adds to that one activity could be done, and frankly should be done in the modern day without the physical necessity of the presence of the dentist to perform this non-dental activity. Thank you very much. And I would ask that the amendment be fairly considered and hopefully adopted after there is further discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to Ray Colas, please.
Yes, Chairwoman Pendergrass, members of the committee, my name is Ray Colas, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Smile Direct Club, here today to testify in support of House Bill 968 with amendments. Smile Direct Club is a telehealth company which provides administrative and technological support to state licensed dentists and orthodontists across the country for clear aligner therapy. Now, you have heard some of the concerns that we have in regards to the bill, and that is as it applies to the requirement for a dentist to be physically present to provide during the simple task of taking the intraoral photography. It's a simple, non-invasive administrative process of gathering information to supply to the state licensed dentist who utilizes the information obtained to make a clinical determination specific to the individual. Now, while they do mention that it should be under direct supervision, I would like to remind you members of the committee that Maryland is now the only state with such a requirement by way of rule. Alabama had a similar requirement in place, and the FTC took action against the Alabama Dental Board, specifically, and I quote, because they violated antitrust laws by requiring on-site supervision by licensed dentists of tooth alignment scans for prospective patients who are seeking to address misaligned teeth or gaps between teeth. Under the terms of the settlement, the board must no longer impede clear aligner platforms or dental professionals affiliated with them from providing clear aligner therapy through remote treatment. So we are here in hopes that you, members of the committee, will make the right decision to correct what was done wrong by way of rule in the state of Maryland. We'd like to thank Delegate Kipke for listening to our concerns, and we hope that we can continue this conversation so that we can maintain our position of support. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lori Brenchley, please. There she is.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lori Brenchley, and I'm currently the president of the Maryland Dental Hygiene Association and representing MDHA bill. Several things have been mentioned throughout this bill today, and I just want to mention that the public does deserve healthcare providers that have obtained appropriate education from their accredited association, approved to deliver the highest standard of dental disease prevention and education, and the clinical assessments and clinicians that are competent in delivering that care. We have serious concerns with this bill, which would substantially expand the scope of practice of dental assistants to include the dental services and currently provided only by licensed dentists and dental hygienists that have received clinical and didactic knowledge and training through their accredited association or institution. Without these tools, the provider lacks the ability to provide competent care, high-level education to the patient or family member, in addition to the lack of knowledge about the benefits and the risks of the procedures and assessing the outcomes of the treatment provided. For example, if dental sealant placements are not correctly executed due to the elimination, inadequate curing time, or other operator error, the sealant will fail, leaving the tooth more susceptible to dental caries. In regard to nitrous oxide monitoring, if patients are not properly assessed and evaluated, levels of nitrous and oxygen are not properly maintained, patients can fall into a deep sedation level where respiration is depressed, leading to a medical emergency. There are contraindications for the use of silver diamine coronal polishing also, which include the assessing the patient for oral ulcerations and caries. Therefore, it's essential for the patient safety in the law to ensure anyone who's performing the expanded function services under this legislation meets the education and training standards that are required for practitioners. So I urge you to oppose this bill unless the following requirements are included in the amendment, which are for the dental assistants to be at least 18 years of age, training and education to be completed by an accredited educational program, expanded function dental assistants required to be licensed through the state of Maryland and successfully pass the CDCA monitoring nitrous exam, and coronal polishing be removed from the scope of practice.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That concludes that favorable with amendment panel. I'll open it up for questions, and I see Delegate Kelly.
Sorry for so many
No.
questions. I think Bruce probably is best for this one. I'm clearly trying to get a better understanding as to what's going on with your amendment. Can you tell me what do you think is going on here, and how can we help? Or maybe Ray Colas could answer. He had a pretty. Bruce, are you on mute? Oh.
Yeah, he's on mute.
Can you hear me?
There he is.
There you are. Okay.
Thank you, Delegate Kelly. I think the testimony revealed that we are talking about a procedure which is not dental. It is something that assists dentists. It does not have to be performed in a dental office, and it does not have to be performed in the presence of a dentist. All the other states are doing that. There has been FTC action of restraint of trade, which Mr. Kohler spoke about. And all we're seeking to do is an amendment which I will be presenting to you and your committee as to that one portion of this bill that has a lot of merit to it. It really does, is to really modernize it. What I understand is this amendment, what this bill is doing in part, is taking regulations that the Board of Dentistry promulgated quite some time ago and codifying them. I understand that. Well, things have changed since then. The Federal Trade Commission actions, things we've learned from COVID as has been testified to. And so as to this one non-dental procedure, which was codified, regulated a dentist being present, it's no longer applicable. It's things change. And my client is in existence, they're functioning, they're providing services in this state and in all other states. And this would be really restraining choices by patients and the consumer.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bruce.
Working with you. I will show you the amendment first part of next week. I promise you. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Krebs.
Thank you. To follow along with this, I mean, I didn't even know what a tooth alignment scan was, but I think earlier someone testified, one of the dental association folks suggested changing the word from direct to indirect. But I think you were, and that Ray Colas, you can answer this question. It sounds like you're saying even indirect is too much. You don't want any oversight because of the nature of the, and I think we're going to take this up in subcommittee, but I think that's a difference between direct, indirect, and then none at all, because it's not necessary. So you can answer that, but I want to make sure we understand the three different positions right now on this one issue.
Correct. So I would not like to speak to the statement that was made theoretically. However, we would be more than happy to have a meeting with the individual who did make the statement, so we have a clear understanding of the difference between direct and indirect as he sees it, to then, I guess, hopefully come to an agreement.
Well, one follow-up question. So on these tooth alignment scans, are you telling me that sometimes you don't even have to work with a dentist to do them at all? Is that?
No. Correct. No. It's an absolutely administrative task. There's no question.
I'm just not familiar with it.
Yes.
Thank you for informing us.
Delegate Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is for Mr. Bariano. I want to make sure I'm clear about your amendment. Does that just address taking the pictures?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Madam.
Yes.
And
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. I have a question. I think this is for Mr. Colas. I actually, the committee knows what a big fan I am of dentistry, so that's no secret. I go to the dentist regularly, but I've never had pictures taken of my teeth. What, other than x-rays, how do you use the photos? What are the photos used for? And are they are they regular photographs or are there some other kind of special equipment that's being used?
Sure. Dr. Ackerman, by chance, are you still on?
Yes, I'm on the phone call.
Okay,
Would you
then,
mind yeah.
okay, then Dr. Ackerman, I'll take it from you.
So we use these photographs, which are digital photographs, could come from an iPhone like the one I'm holding right now, could come from a single lens reflex digital camera, and they're used to communicate information back to the dentist. Could be diagnostic information, could be a concern about, hey, I've got a toothache, my face is swelling, what do I do? Patients these days in telehealth take photos, or they have a loved one take their photos that get sent directly to the dentist who's not anywhere near them geographically. I hope that answers the question.
It does. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 968. I thank you all for your time and your testimony today. We will move to House Bill 1109, another Delegate Kipke bill. It's first responders and emergency responders definition, 911 dispatchers included. Delegate Kipke.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of our committee. It's great to present this bill to you. This bill came at the request of a constituent of mine over the interim, and it has a cross file in the Senate with my Senator Brian Simonaire. Yesterday at 5 o'clock, I realized I forgot to tell my constituent that the bill hearing was today. So I'm going to present her testimony, and she'll be at the hearings on a different day in the Senate. She'll be there in person to testify. But basically, you know, if you think about the role of when you call 911 and someone answers, they're the front line of defense, basically, in so many crises. And, you know, obviously the job comes with the psychological impacts that you would expect when all day long you answer those types of phone calls. What the bill does simply is it removes them, or it adds to our code anywhere where first responders are mentioned in all of the state code. It adds the 911 operators. What does this mean? It doesn't cost us anything, doesn't change anything, but for those 911 operators, it really means a great deal to them and shows them the respect I believe that they're deserved. So at this time, I'm just going to read through Tabitha Panasuk's testimony that she's written. She writes, when the worst circumstances strike and you just don't know what to do, you call 911. Every American knows 911 is how you get help. The police arrive, or firefighters, or EMTs, or paramedics, and they help you. But they are not considered officially first responders, those people that answer the phones when you're calling with your emergency. Your emergency must be processed through their hands, and those of the dedicated professionals who answer the 911 lines are highly trained and skilled to deal with the crisis that presents itself. They are the calm in the storm. They provide comfort, stability, and care to citizens they serve until field professionals can get to the scene. Your worst day is our normal day. However, the federal government classifies us as clerical staff. Granted, there are many similarities, but they are only on the surface. 911 professionals deserve to be recognized as the first responders that they are. Several states around the nation have already passed bills making this simple distinction. And I believe that the more we do to do this throughout the nation, the more attention the federal government will pay to the 911 Saves Act, which is a legislation currently in Congress, introduced in a bipartisan way by Congress Representative Torres from California and Senator Burr from North Carolina. I am hopeful that this recognition will improve recruitment efforts, which are sorely needed, and bring desperately needed people into the industry, and that it may give us additional bargaining power when dealing with our respective cities and counties. But the most important reason, and frankly, the reason I introduced the legislation, is to grant them the distinction that is simple and costs nothing, but means so much. Designating 911 professionals as first responders grants them the respect that they earn every hour of every day of the year. Thank you. And with that, Madam Chairman, I'll conclude my testimony.
Thank you, Delegate. And I'll call on Robert Phillips, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the committee. My name is Robert Phillips. I am the chairman of the Maryland State Firefighters Legislative Committee. The MSFA is in full support of HB 1109. We feel the 911 dispatcher is the first link in the first responder chain. They get the original call, and they support the caller until other first responders arrive on location. Without them, we would not know the emergency or where it is. When on location, they assist us by coordinating our communications and other assets responding to us and the emergency. At this time, there are about 1,400 911 dispatchers employed in the state of Maryland who would benefit from the passage of this bill. With that in mind, I would thank you for your attention to the bill, and we ask for a favorable report. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Kevin Canali, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Kevin Canali here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of House Bill 1109. You've already heard the benefits of this bill. Me too on everything you've already heard. I want to point out one of the things in this bill that I really think is important. So there's a provision in state law right now where first responders are entitled to a special protection against someone who seeks to inflict physical injury upon them while they're in their official while they're in their role with their official duties. 911 specialists are currently not in that definition, and I think it's proper for us to do so. As Delegate Kipke said, this is a bill that to me is about respect. 911 specialists are not clerical. They are the first responders, and we think this bill properly gives them that recognition. So we'd ask for a favorable report.
Thank you very much. That concludes the panel. Let me open it up for questions. Are there any questions from the committee? Delegate Bagnall.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the bill sponsor. I actually really appreciate this bill, and I thought we had done this, but I think I might be conflating the next gen 911 work. But I just wanted to ask you about a little clarification because there's references to alcohol licensing. Is that? Can you just speak to that? I'm just trying to figure out what that reference is.
I don't want to scare you, but you and I have the same thoughts on both of these topics. When it was presented to me, I said, I thought we already did this. And then when I got the bill back from the drafter, I looked at that. I'm like, what is this about alcohol? I don't know if anybody else on the panel can better answer it, but I do know in some smaller jurisdictions, you know how we have liquor inspectors in Anne Arundel County, they use law enforcement in their areas for those inspections. That might be carried over from days long gone by. I'm not exactly sure, but we can get to the bottom of it. But that's what I've been told.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I really appreciate this bill.
Thank you, Delegate. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, that concludes the hearing on House Bill 1109, and we will go to House Bill 1003. This is Delegate Kerr, and it's Public Safety 311 Systems, Non-Emergency Information. Delegate Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues on the Health and Government Operations Committee. I am Delegate Ken Kerr, here presenting House Bill 1003, Statewide 311. Last year, Senator Kagan brought us Senate Bill 631 after it passed the Senate unanimously. That bill was intended to create a study to determine the need for a statewide 311 system. During that hearing in HGO, this committee suggested that there was no need for a study and we should just go ahead and create a statewide 311. So this year we are back with House Bill 1003, not a study, but a bill to establish a statewide 311 system. Over the interim, the 311 work group, along with HGO members, delegates Cullison, Hill, and Krebs, as well as representatives from state agencies, 911, 211, county officials, Maryland Department of Emergency Management, DO-IT, and industry partners met, and the result is the bill you have before you. In brief, 311 is a single point of contact for any Maryland resident to access non-emergency government services. Everyone's familiar with 911 in use in the United States and over 10 other countries for emergency services. Alarmingly, about 37% of the calls received by 911 are non-emergencies, which slow the system, sap resources, and distract the 911 specialists from fulfilling their important mission. Fallen trees blocking my driveway, my trash didn't get picked up, I have no electricity, where can I get a COVID vaccine? These are all important, but they're not emergencies. There's also Maryland 211 for access to mental health and substance use issues. 988 is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. 511's for traffic, and so on. So you might be thinking people will get confused. Well, 311 is there to avoid the guesswork and confusion. Each of the 3-digit codes can easily transfer the caller to the appropriate emergency or non-emergency number. This gets the caller to the resource they need quickly and efficiently without overburdening the agency initially receiving the call. You have on your floor system a document called Reasons to Call 311, and it shows the appropriate issues that go to each of those numbers. That will be part of a public information campaign to inform residents about the 3-digit options and when to use which. But as I mentioned, each of these 3-digit codes can route the call to the appropriate system using a chart like this. While some Maryland residents don't have a computer, smart device, or reliable internet service, just about everyone has a phone. And statewide 311 connects those residents to the government services they need without having to do a Google search. 311 is currently offered in 6 counties with varying levels of development: Anne Arundel, Baltimore County and City, Montgomery, Prince George's, as well as St. Mary's that has an online version. So you may ask, what happens to them? You have in your testimony packet another document saying statewide 311 options. Counties happy with their system can continue to operate it independently and cooperate with the state 311 system at their own expense. Or they can join the state 311 system and reallocate those funds to other local priorities. There's no question that 911 has saved countless lives and property. These 911 specialists have a stressful job requiring skill and a lot of experience and a lot of burnout. As Delegate Kippy and his panel described in the previous bill, statewide 311 can serve as both a training experience for new specialists and a place to take a respite from the stress of emergency response work. They can also assist in training new 311 operators or ramp down their careers with statewide 311 while continuing to provide an essential public service. You're probably wondering, how are we going to pay for this? Well, we don't know. I don't know if it made it to your floor system, but you should have a letter from Congressman David Trone, who serves on the House Appropriations Committee, and we've been working with the congressman. Also, the fiscal note came in lower than we had anticipated, 2.2 to set up the system, 12.5 million in the first year for equipment, then around 7 million a year beyond that to operate, maintain, replace, upgrade equipment. There will not be a fee added to the phone bill, or no 911 funds will be used. My panel of experts is state and county representatives, and I asked Madam Chair, we begin with the newly confirmed, no longer acting Secretary Russ Strickland of the Maryland Department of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Delegate. We will go to Mr. Strickland. Congratulations on your final appointment.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. And to the chairman and the vice chair and members of the committee, thank you for having me here today. I am here in support of House Bill 1003, which will establish a statewide 311 system. I believe this to be a major step forward in building a culture of preparedness and resilience in Maryland. And I want to recognize the leadership of Delegate Kerr and Senator Kagan on this issue. I have submitted written testimony for your consideration, which outlines why I think 311 is a foundational building block to a more resilient Maryland. Today, I'd like to highlight what I think is most crucial about a statewide 311 system. Marylanders need accessible, trustworthy information on both state and local government services on a daily basis. A foundation of preparedness is knowing where to get information when disasters strike. The statewide 311 system will provide that, replacing a litany of local and state individual numbers with just one that Marylanders can call no matter what their question or need is. To that end, a statewide 311 system will establish a no wrong door approach, partnering with public safety answering points, County 911 centers, Maryland 211, 988, and the important government access points for various services and support for our residents. I want to stress that while this effort will require an investment, the increase in preparedness and resilience at the individual and communities level will pay dividends during disasters in both life and property protection. I appreciate the opportunity to share the Department of Emergency Management's position regarding this bill and respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 1003. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Quinton Askew, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Madam Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Quinton Askew, President and CEO of 211 Maryland. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of House Bill 1003. 211 Maryland supports House Bill 1003, which establishes a 311 board and a statewide 311 system under the Maryland Department of Emergency Management to provide certain non-emergency information. The 911 system is one of our most critical government programs available to us in Maryland, and this bill will reduce the 911 non-emergency calls by expanding government 311 capabilities. In addition, the legislation requires the establishment of a 311 board that includes 211 membership, and this will provide an opportunity to identify best practice ways to collaborate or perhaps even consolidate core functions. Like 211, 311 will serve as a valuable data capturing system so government officials can learn about the residents of their community, whether it be noise, potholes, abandoned cars, or other immediate needs. This allows leadership in government to make changes in the community and improve the overall quality of life for community members in Maryland. On behalf of 211 Maryland, I strongly encourage the committee to issue a favorable report on House Bill 1003. Thank you for your time and consideration to this bill.
Thank you, Quinton. Good to see you. Kevin Canali, please. And I understand Kevin has an amendment.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. Kevin Canali here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of this bill with really just a technical amendment or belt and suspender amendment, if you will. But we support this bill and we support the concept. There's going to be a lot of challenges and I think a lot of work. Putting this board underneath of the Maryland Department of Emergency Management makes a lot of sense. They have the expertise to help move this process forward. But we really appreciate the flexibility in the bill. We do have several counties that operate 311, various levels of service for sure, but allowing them to continue to offer those services if they choose to do so is something that we really appreciate. And I'll just say that, during the pandemic, we saw that a lot of residents needed information, non-emergency information, but about essential services. And we think that a statewide 311 system provides an all boats rise approach, if you will, make sure that we have the same services available in Western Maryland all the way down to the Eastern Shore. And that's a win-win for everyone. Our amendment is just to make sure that because this is so technical, that we do continue to work with the department, which I have no issue and no doubt that we will. We have a great relationship and we want to carry that forward. And we also want to make sure, of course, there's a cost component to this, but for the state mandated portion that counties aren't required to pay. And I don't think that's the intent of the bill. I think it's pretty clear in that bill, but our members just wanted to make sure that we mentioned that. But we really look forward to this collaboration and partnership. We think it's a great idea and we support absolutely the concept of a statewide 311 system.
Okay, thank you. And we have someone who's going to provide some information on such a system, Laura Dunwoody. Laura Dunwoody, are you here?
Can you see me now?
Now
Chair?
we can. Yes,
Thank
and
you.
we can hear you. Yes.
Thank you. Greetings from Colorado, Madam Chairperson and the committee. I'm here to provide some insight for Bill HB 1003. I'm the resident director of resident experience for the city and county of Denver in Colorado. And one of my responsibilities is the 311 contact center and its performance. The site was established in 2006, and the 311 Center was able to crystallize over 1,200 phone numbers and extensions that Denver residents needed to navigate or to conduct business within our city, down to one 3-digit number, 311. In the years since we launched, 311's expanded and matured. We started out with just phone calls, and we've added additional channels of email and live chat, as well as a robust website presence. So we're able to tailor our services as the desires of our community move. 70% of our callers to 311 get their answer or their work request started right there during that first interaction without even being transferred. The other 30% have their requests gathered, a case created and routed to the appropriate agency to be resolved. Once any needed work has been completed or an answer provided by the agency, a response to close the loop on the 311 interaction is sent, notifying the residents of the results. Our agencies are now focused on, and I use air quotes, filling the potholes rather than talking to residents about potholes. Denver handles about 2,000 interactions a day, and to give you some perspective, we have about 750,000 residents. That comes out to about 500,000 interactions a year. Each interaction takes less than 3 minutes. We have an 85% resident satisfaction rating out of 100%. We answer calls in about 2 minutes. We answer chats in 20 seconds and emails within 24 hours. And we're able to support this entire model with less than 40 agents. As important as the residents' appreciation of the 311 model, and I think this is often overlooked when people are looking at all the possibilities and the good stuff that comes out of a 311 model, is the data the output of the model provides. Prior to 311, there was really no way for the city to know who was calling Denver and why. All of this information was dispersed amongst the 1,200 phone numbers and extensions. And with them all coming in to one streamlined area, we've become kind of the canary in the coal mine for the data of the resident experience concerns. Oftentimes, I and my team will know about a problem in, say, solid waste or public health before those agencies even know it, because I see the concentration of interactions with our residents on that topic in the data before they have enough time to realize that there is a trend happening. We can see challenges happening way before the agency is even aware. The top 5 or 10 reasons that people call 311 is absolute gold for Denver leaders every year when we're doing budget and planning resource allocation and dollar considerations year over year. We're able to really distill our data down for our leaders so that they can make good, solid database decisions. And in fact, this year Denver was awarded an acknowledgement of being one of the top data-driven decision cities in the United States, and 311 data plays a good role in that.
Okay, we're going to need to ask you to wrap up, please.
Sure. So
Okay.
anyway, I encourage Maryland to consider a 311 model. The return on investment was immediate for Denver, and I would expect the same experience for Maryland.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
That completes all of the speakers on House Bill 1003. I'll open it up for questions. Delegate Krebs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think we have a meeting set up between you and me to talk about this. And thank you,
hope
Russ. This is something obviously near and dear to my heart after spending now the 4th year on the 911 Commission, and we did great work. And my only issue for this committee is right now we have a bunch of bills in front of us. We have 988, which is suicide prevention that's mandated by the federal government. We have this bill in front of us, which is much broader, and we have 211 already in existence, which Quentin is here. I've spoken to Quentin and they do a very good job, but we have all of these moving parts. And I just want to mention that when we did 911 and we did a bunch of different things for 911, it was like, where do we place the board? And our immediate thought, we tried to act on it. And then all of a sudden we realized it didn't fit right. It didn't seem right. And we took a little time to ponder it. And after a little bit of deliberation, we came up with Russ Strickland. You wouldn't be where you are today if we hadn't elevated you to a cabinet level position through this committee. And we found the right spot, but at first we didn't have the right spot. So what I'm asking, I guess, I don't know if what's your name's still from Colorado, but given the fact that we have all of these moving parts and some are in place, some aren't in place, and some are mandated by federal law. How do we ensure that we are looking at it? I mean, I know 9188, we need to find a funding source for that. That's a bill that we still have out there. And then we still got Quentin in 211. How do we make sure we pull all of these things together and have one governance body that fits best so that we can produce, I mean, some economies of scale and have everybody communicating with each other? How do we look at all of these bills collectively and come up with the best product for our citizens? And I don't know, for us,
I was going to say,
to that.
Yeah, Mr. Strickland, I think you're the person might have the most information on that.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the question, Senator Krebs, because I do see emergency management as the body that can pull all of those people together and organize it and keep it in a lane so that we're delivering to the citizens the services they need. That's basically what emergency management has done through the years, is that type of coordination. It's going to take some effort. It will be a creation of a 311 board, which will establish the guidelines and all of the implementation processes that we would go through, but it would be that board with the support of the Department of Emergency Management to bring basically to herd all the cats is probably one of the best ways to phrase it.
Well, and I'm just, the lady from Colorado was the city of Denver. This is statewide, and Somerset's different from Montgomery County. And we have to appreciate that. But I guess I would like just to be considered that we already have a 211 board and they're up and running, and just, we need to keep in mind, what do we already have in place and how they all going to fit in? And I can talk offline. I'm very passionate about this, but we have a lot in front of us and it's a great opportunity to pull it all together and make sure it's all coordinated.
Thank you, delegates. Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all. And thank you, Delegate Kerr, for bringing this really super important bill. Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you. One of the things that we'll be talking about in the next bill, but I think is relevant to the discussion of the cost, is we've had to have the comptroller do some audits of the telecommunications folks. Can you explain what our expectations are in terms of funding sources that consumers are already paying the fees to support this system?
Well, the 911 will stay separate. So the concerns in the past with the 911 and the comptroller and all, that is specifically in the 911 lane. This bill, as it's written right now, and as Delegate Kerr mentioned, is that we're not 100% sure how we're going to fund it. We do have information from Congressman Trone of possibilities within the federal government of ways that we can at least get it started. But from there, it would be state supported as well as any federal dollars we could identify in the future.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I thank you all for your time and testimony, and delegate for this bill. That concludes the hearing on 1003. We will move to Delegate Hill's bill, 1105, Public Safety 911 Emergency Telephone System Alterations. Delegate Hill.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and to the committee, the chairman, the vice chair, and committee members. I want to first thank Delegate Kipke and Kerr for teeing me up. Unlike Delegate Krebs, I only had 1 year of service, and a short year at that, on this really August commission to advance next generation 911. But the work that this committee has done in response to the first 3 years of work have, inured them to me, and I have great respect for them. So I'm really pleased and proud to come before you today with this work product. The final report that came out in December had 24 recommendations. And we have several bills, some of which you've heard, some are being heard in other committees, that are trying to get to each of those recommendations. The bill before you, House Bill 1105, takes on the majority of those recommendations. And again, the goal is to make sure we have the most robust, functional and responsive 911 statewide integrated system possible. Again, the stakeholders on the committee were numerous, including 911 center directors, technology and telecommunications industry representatives, cybersecurity professionals, and of course, headed by Senator Cheryl Kagan, Senator Ed Riley, Senator and formerly Delegate Michael Jackson, Delegate Susan Krebs. So what is this bill going to do? We're going to try and do a couple things. Reclassify 911 specialists as first responders. You heard about the importance of that in Delegate Kippy's testimony on his bill, and make appropriate adjustments to the compensation standards as well. Number two, facilitate access for mental health treatment of job-related trauma with assurance of privacy and confidentiality. Number three, to require implicit bias training for PSAP, that's the public safety answering points personnel. Number four, to improve the 911 board operations in a few ways. Number one, by making sure we establish policies and procedures, or that they establish policies and procedures to quickly fill board vacancies with appropriately expert and committed individuals, that they respond to and work with the local PSAPs that fail to meet training requirements, because again, we don't want to put our PSAPs out of business, but we want them to live up to the highest standards that are being set. And we also want to make sure that the board has a policy and procedure for working with local PSAPs that fail to meet the cybersecurity standards. And certainly this committee understands how critical good cybersecurity infrastructure and support systems and absolute compliance across the state is necessary. We cannot have local jurisdictions that just don't do what they have to do because it's not a priority. And so we need the board to have the proper carrots and sticks at hand to make sure that things get done. Next, I mentioned earlier in questioning that where the comptroller is doing audits of the telecommunications companies, we have some information that some of them have been collecting the fees for the PSAPs and 911, but haven't been remitting them. And this is to some extent because of some confusion or lack of understanding. And we want to make sure that those audits are rolled out more, a little bit faster, and that we can get a better idea of what monies are due and get those collected as soon as possible. And make whatever appropriate adjustments are necessary. And then again, finally, we give local jurisdictions the authority to adjust their fees to make sure that the operational costs that they're incurring are covered by those 911 fees. So that in essence is the bill. It's really a critically important bill, and every component is something that I hope that this committee will take under consideration and find favorably. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. I'd like to call on John Ripley, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I first want to thank Delegate Hill and Senator Kagan and all the members of the Next Gen Commission, for that matter, for their diligent work on the Next Gen 911 Commission. My name is John Ripley. I'm the president of the Baltimore County Federation of Public Employees, and I represent about 1,500 Baltimore County employees, including about 250 active 911 center call takers and dispatchers. Over the years, I have witnessed these hardworking men and women perform this highly technical job and demonstrate countless acts of sacrifice and commitment to public safety. We in Baltimore County believe we have one of the very best police and fire departments in the state of Maryland, but without the professionals from 911 Center, these professions would falter. 911 Center employees are truly the first responders, and this bill would correctly reclassify them as first responders. Because of this, we urge your support of HB 1105.
Thank you, Mr. Ripley.
Thank you.
Kasia Gachalalian. Sorry, I'm not pronounced that correctly.
That's quite all right. Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, thank you so much for hearing us on this bill. It's very important to us. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Keisha Gachalian. I am the Vice President of the Baltimore County Federation of Public Employees. I work alongside John Ripley. I've also been a 911 call taker and a police dispatcher for the last 20 years. And the last 8 years, I have been the assistant supervisor for police dispatch in Baltimore County. I support this bill very much, especially the classification and compensation of 911 specialists. We at Baltimore County 911 work long hours. We work 12-hour shifts. And lately, because of staffing issues, we are also getting called in on our days off, most of the time working all 12 hours. With that being said, we spend time away from our families. We spend time away from our friends as well. And it's important that this bill gets through so that way they get reclassified as first responders. Also, I've seen some studies on dispatcher stress, and I just wanted to read something from one study that I found, and it says that emergency dispatch workers also report similar levels of psychological distress to that of their operational police counterparts. Additionally, the dispatch role creates significant cognitive demands in the handling of complex information and the coordination of that information between the public and police responders. Police dispatchers must also manage the emotionality of emergency incidents, usually being the first point of contact for distressed members of the public, while simultaneously maintaining emotional neutrality. For that, our training is very important. Our call takers and dispatchers need the appropriate training so they can handle these calls professionally and be there for the police officers and the firefighters and the citizens of Baltimore County. And also, I just want to touch base on the cybersecurity. That's extremely important because there's a lot of confidential personal information that we deal with. I'm also an NCIC instructor that has to deal with METERS, which is the Maryland Electronic Telecommunication Enforcement Resource System, which is what we use to access criminal history record of subjects. And we also run MVA information. So it's important that that information is secure. So with that being said, I am in favor of House Bill 1105. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to call Secretary Strickland back.
Thank you. And again, to the chair, vice chair, and members of the committee, I'm very, very happy to speak here today. I'm in support of House Bill 1105, and I've submitted written remarks outlining why this bill is important to the state's 911 system. Today, I just simply want to reiterate that the Maryland Department of Emergency Management appreciates the leadership of Delegate Hill and Senator Kagan on the 911 improvement in Maryland. As the new home of the 911 board, we do stand ready to assist the board with the resources they need to implement the changes that are in this particular bill. I appreciate the opportunity to share the Department of Emergency Management's position regarding the bill and respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 1105. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Kevin Canali.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Kevin Canali here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of House Bill 1105. I too want to thank Delegate Hill, Senator Kagan, all of the members of the commission. I've served on the commission for the past 4 years, and I can tell you that the work that's been done there is incredible, and Maryland is absolutely a leader in developing and implementing a statewide next-gen 911 system, and that's absolutely going to save lives. We view this bill as an important move as the next step to continuing upon that progress and properly recognizing, as you've already heard, our first responders, 911 specialists as first responders. Cybersecurity is super important. We know that this bill would require that 911 centers bolster cybersecurity with the proper guidance from MDM and others. And then, of course, we know that we've had some vacancies on the 911 board. That's really important. It's necessary to ensure the proper expertise and oversight as we do shift to next-gen 911. So this bill addresses that by streamlining the process for filling those vacancies. And finally, the bill does allow counties some flexibility to impose a 911 fee that is actually sufficient to cover costs, and that is with the proper oversight from the 911 board and the comptroller. These fees can only be used for 911. That's the way we believe it should be, and that's the way it will be moving forward. But we certainly have had some issues, and we knew we would. We knew we might have to come back and try to amend some of this to make sure that we were doing what we set out to do, which is to essentially make the 911 fee cover the services that we're providing. So again, we think this bill just bolsters the framework and the resources to guide a successful statewide transition. It will enhance public safety communications in Maryland, and it will save lives. And we'd ask for a favorable report.
Thank you. That completes the speakers on 11:05. I'll open it up for questions. Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Questions for the bill sponsor or anyone on the panel, really. Big supporter of 911. Definitely want to show up when 911 is called. But I remember, I believe it was last year, we had a bill similar to this, and we doubled the fees going into the 911, I guess, trust fund. And I'm looking at this legislation on page 4 of the fiscal note. It says that the counties can charge their own fees, and I'm just wondering, like, why when we just doubled the fee, why is there no limit? Or even if you're concerned about potential costs escalating.
Okay, thank you very much for the question, Delegate Morgan. The counties are limited to covering their operational costs. So they can't raise the fee any more than what the costs are. And we know that the costs vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And as I mentioned earlier, we're doing an audit process now, but we wanted to make sure that if they're coming up short, that doesn't compromise their ability to operate in Howard County, St. Mary's County, or in any other jurisdiction.
Thank you for your.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Salega.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for this bill. Thanks, John, and the rest of the first responders. We're truly appreciative of everything you do. I would like to ask the bill sponsor, it's similar to what Delegate Morgan just asked on page 11 of the bill. We're striking out not to exceed $1.50 a month and putting in this language sufficient to cover the county's projected operational costs for the 911 system for the fiscal year. Are you willing to, I'm a little worried that language is too loose. What do you think that would end up being? I mean, moving away from a number to a kind of more ambiguous language.
Right. So, I mean, I think it's a good question. Thank you for it. I think the point in the wording in the bill is designed to accept the fact that we don't know. There was conversation, for instance, on the floor this morning, discussion and debate about, the rising cost of gas, right? We wouldn't want to have something go on where suddenly, or because of other exigent circumstances, the cost of running the system becomes compromised because they're stuck at $1.50 and they have to wait to come back to the legislature to ask for an adjustment. We've had testimony by HSCRC earlier this week talking about the need for them to make an adjustment to meet their cost. So this language was designed to take off an artificial ceiling and to impose the very real borders or boundaries that are based on the job we want them to do, our need to make sure that they become and stay current, particularly with respect to cybersecurity. We know that different local jurisdictions are going to have different needs in order to bring themselves current, and we want them to have the flexibility to fairly assign and adjust their fee to meet their needs.
Thank you for that thorough answer. But wouldn't, obviously, this is an essential public need. So couldn't some of that money be taken from a general fund? And wouldn't that be appropriate? Because this is a public safety issue and a general need. So there are certainly other sources of revenue where if they needed to come back and have it adjusted, they could. And it's not like public safety isn't job number one of every level of government.
But that's not how we set up the 911 fund. We set it up to be self.
Sure, we did, but we certainly could still get general.
Right, so that
funds.
could be another bill.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Chairman Pendergrass. Still on mute.
Thank
There
you,
you
Madam
go.
Speaker or Chairman. So I'm looking at this bill and I'm looking at House Bill 1003, and I come up with $2.5 million in fiscal impact. Mr. Strickland, I don't know if you're speaking for the administration or for straight EMS. It's a little confusing to me, but I'd like you to answer the question of if the governor has put $2.5 million in the budget to cover this, or what the plan is for that, because it's a lot of money.
That money has not been placed in the budget at this point in time that I'm aware of.
And are you speaking for the administration?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so the PR people have signed off on your taking a position, which is very unusual for us to see the administration take a position on a bill. So I'm just making sure that I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I want to thank everyone who came on the bill for their time and testimony, and that concludes the hearing on House Bill 1105. We will move to the last bill of the day, and that is House Bill 975, this is Delegate Charles, Maryland Loan Assistance Repayment for Nurses and Nursing Workers, Program Establishment and Funding. Delegate Charles, welcome back to HGO.
It feels good to be back at home. Thank you guys so much. For the record, I am Delegate Nick Charles, representing District 25, here in favor of House Bill 975, the Maryland Loan Assistance Repayment Program for Nurses and Nursing Workers. This bill is to establish the Maryland Loan Assistance Program Fund for Nurses and Nursing Workers. Much like the ongoing and successful Loan Assistance Fund for physicians and physician assistants, this fund will assist in the repayment of certain educational loans in an effort to help close the growing shortage of trained and certified nurses throughout Maryland. And it is to incentivize those nurses and nursing workers receiving this assistance to remain and work in underserved areas and health sectors in the state. Since the advent of COVID-19, there have been countless reports of nursing shortages and other frontline health workers. The truth is, shortages of skilled nurses, and most particularly those with a bachelor's degree or higher, have been ongoing and growing in Maryland for years. According to a 2018 study conducted by the University System of Maryland titled Strengthening Maryland's Healthcare Workforce, Maryland is one of the 4 states that will experience a shortage of 10,000 or more registered nurses, RNs, by 2025. So an urgency for more and more highly trained nurses obligates us to explore ways to increase nursing at all degree levels. COVID-19 has exacerbated these shortages, with reports that it's far worse now than it's ever been in over 40 years. The challenge is even greater in rural and other traditionally underserved communities in specified healthcare sectors. And this is not just a problem for Maryland. We are in the midst of a growing and acute national shortage of the nursing professional. Indeed, the American Association of the College of Nursing predicts that by 2029, there will be a national deficit of 176,000 nurses in the nursing workforce if this current trend continues. Trained nurses and nursing workers are leaving the profession and the state at an alarming rate. They are leaving now for a number of reasons, not least of which include COVID-19 infection, a professional burnout, that as a result, COVID has been linked to demands to work longer shifts with fewer resources. Further, the national nursing shortage has led to the creation of private nursing contracting companies that hire skilled nurses and send them across the country where there is a greater need. The attraction for these nurses, of course, is the promise of much higher wages. Several official strategies are underway to increase the nursing workforce in Maryland. These include creating accelerated nursing degree programs at several of Maryland's universities from 2 years to 15 months, and enacting programs to attract out-of-state registered nurses and licensed practical nurses to Maryland. In an effort to increase greater applications for the Maryland-based nursing programs, incentives are being offered to increase student capacity. Nursing school debt remains a significant deterrent for many who would like to see a nursing degree, but who cannot afford to. This bill would establish a fund to help defray the debt that in return would oblige recipients to participate in underserved locations and then specialties where there is a greater need in Maryland for a predetermined period of time. It's a win-win proposition, really. Nurses are relieved of debt and Maryland gains skilled nurses where there is a greatest need. The governor's proposed budget of 2023 already has $2 million set aside for this fund. By passing this bill, we can make certain that those funds get to the Maryland nurses and nursing workers who need them most. I'd like to thank you all for hearing me on this bill, and I hope that you'll join me in supporting of the nurses. And I know we have a few folks here to testify in support of this bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate. We'll start with Joshua Harold, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, and good afternoon, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Joshua Harold, Regional Director of 1199 SEIU Training and Upgrading Fund for Maryland and DC, and I'm testifying in favor of House Bill 975. Pursuing education in nursing has become a necessity for RNs to maintain a career. We know that there are severe shortages for professionals in the nursing field. We've been hearing about these shortages for the last several years. When we look at the cost for an individual to pursue degrees in nursing, we find that this venture is expensive. At the 1199 SEIU Training and Upgrading Fund, we support our members to pursue these advanced degrees. One of the ways that we assist members is through a tuition assistance program. This program is a great asset, but in the Maryland DC region, it only covers a piece of the tuition. When you learn that these degree programs can cost over $57,000 to earn a bachelor's in nursing, and an addition of more than $20,000 for those RNs that want to move into leadership roles with a graduate degree in nursing, you see that our program is a piece. This underscores the need for the Maryland Loan Assistance Repayment Program. The Loan Assistance Repayment Program would be effective at assisting healthcare professionals to reach their occupational goals, along with providing the healthcare employers and patients with skilled professionals to provide premium care. Priority being given to nurses and workers participating in geographical areas or medical specialties identified as experiencing shortages by the state is an important addition to this legislation that can overcome even more significant skills and staffing gaps. For these reasons, I support House Bill 975 and ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Erin Dorian, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Erin Dorian representing the Maryland Hospital Association and our 60-member hospital and health systems across the state here in strong support of HB 975. I want to thank Delegate Charles for introducing this bill and for the partnership that we have with SEIU in moving this bill forward. You heard about the need for this program from the sponsor and from Mr. Harold, but I want to focus on one small aspect of the nursing shortage. A lack of faculty and clinical preceptors contributed to more than 80,000 qualified applicants nationwide being denied admissions to baccalaureate and graduate nursing programs in 2019 alone. Loan repayment would support recruitment and retention of the nursing workforce and encourage nurses to pursue advanced education. Hopefully, some of these nurses would consider taking on the role of nursing educator. HB 975 invests in the health of all Marylanders and the future pipeline of nurses we need to care for them. For these reasons, I urge a favorable report on House Bill 975.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the speakers on this bill. I'll open it up for questions from the committee. Okay, seeing no questions. Thank you, Delegate Charles, for bringing us this bill and everyone for their time and testimony. That concludes the hearing on House Bill 975 and the work before us today. The committee will have a voting session, which begins today at 4:15.